Talking about digitalization is important. Being familiar with the importance of digitalization is fundamental. But now the time has come to serve specific answers to your existing problems. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the first episode of the RailVoice webinar series. Today we're going to focus on digitalization in an ECM-driven environment. For that, we will cover this with 4 excellent speakers. At first, I want to give you a short overview of the first half of this excellent Thursday. We're going to start off with Nathalie Duquenne, not only advisor to the European Commission, but also project officer at the European Agency for Railways. She will outline the challenges for owners, keepers, and maintainers coming along with the revised Regulation 2019-779. She will be followed by Alexander Schimanofsky, CEO of the Railway Competence and Certification Limited. And he will show us some things about the certification program they offer. And as we are talking about the digitalization in an ECM-driven environment, Helmut Hohenbichler, former strategic IT consultant of Rail Cargo Group and now Senior Vice President of Boom Rail Solutions, will show us what to pay attention to when going through a digitalization process in an ECM-driven environment, and why you should not miss out on this opportunity. And last but not least, we have a guy with a lot of frontline experience when it comes to operational implementation of ECM compliance, Wolfgang Seidl, Quality Management at Innofreight Limited. He will share his experience with us and will point out where to put your attention to when going through an implementation process. In the end, we will have the chance to discuss the burning questions on a virtual round table. And if you have asked yourself, who is that guy? My name is Lukas Schmölz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tetraversity Media, and we are powering Eisenbahn.blog, the leading platform for the future of railway and public transport in German-speaking Europe. Before we start off, and as still some attendees are dropping into our webinar, I want to quickly talk to the man who provided this virtual room for us today, the CEO of Boom Software, Andreas Schaller.
Hi.
Hello, Andreas.
Hello.
So, as the slogan "We Talk Rail" comes along with Boom Software, what do you associate with "We Talk Rail"?
To me, We Talk Rail means exactly that what we want to do here today, an exchange of experience and know-how between experts who speaks the same language, the rail language. For Boom Software, it's important to have this experience and this know-how for a successful product management and successful customer projects.
That sounds good to me. So, but why was it so important for you to create such an event under such, I'd say, challenging circumstances?
Yeah, we create RailVoice because we want to provide a practical platform for the digital transformation of the rail industry. We want to make a contribution to pushing this necessary digitalization processes. We have to increase the competitiveness against other infrastructure, freight and mobility providers, even or better, especially under such challenging circumstances.
So now we can imagine who you want to address with this episode of the webinar, as we are talking about digitalization in an ECM-driven environment. But you're planning to do a whole webinar series. So what is your target group, or who want you to address with the whole series?
Yeah, we want to hold these RailVoice events regularly with different topics. So we want to address all people in the rail industry, because this digital transformation process concerns all of us. So let's talk rail.
Let's talk rail. It sounds good to me. Thank you so much, and thank you for providing this webinar for us. And as we still wait for some attendees, I'd say that we take the chance to talk to Franz Lückler on the visual right of Andreas. He's the former CEO of Austrian's operator for all the express and motorways, and now he's currently member of the board of directors of Boom Software. Franz, good to have you.
Thank you. Hi, good morning.
Hi. So, what are your expectations for this webinar?
Yes, my experience is Boom has a lot of clients around the world. And we can also see all our clients has more or less the same problems. When I was in Berlin or in Ostrava, for example, on exhibitions or trade shows, our partners, our customers has always the same questions, the same requirements, the same claims. So with this Boom Rail webinar, thank you also for organizing, dear Bettina and Lucas, to you. So we had the international meeting, and we want to bring all our potential clients on the same table and to discuss the thematics and the same questions. So I think first we can share informations. I think also very important is to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Talking about learning from each other, so you say you have a lot of experience and a lot of clients around the world. Can you maybe just shortly explain how diverse challenges can be, so that we know what challenges we are talking and what range of challenges we are talking with? Just briefly.
Just briefly, first to obtain all the kinds of this I think the most important elements to produce, first of them is our target is to produce safer traffic or transport. Then to be user-friendly, and also to look for cost savings, and to be more or less competitive on the international transport market. So we can make a little bit different if we look for that whole traffic. So we can make a difference between automotive sector, for example, or in the rail transport.
So we're talking about, yeah, sorry.
No, if you see how proactive digitalization strategy in the mobility is so important. In kind of rail transport, for example, personal trains, or there, from my position, is usability or punctuality. In the cargo, in the cargo transport, digital bill of loading or communication between cargo and port, for example. In the automotive sector, I would see more or less it's everything is in the target to automotive driving, necessary car-to-car communication or car-to-car infrastructure. It's more or less the same also in infrastructure, in rail transport.
So when talking about competitiveness, do you think, or maybe a question to both of you, do you think that there is maybe a kind of a transition, so that we need to do more when looking in the direction of digitalization to stay competitive? So is there a greater demand for a profound digitalization strategy and a specific digitalization strategy to keep competitive? To remain competitive?
This is the main target also for the future. And we can see if we give the focus, for example, to the cargo rail part for the freight transport. When we go in comparison with road and rail in European network, for example, the trucks driver, you can see the trucks the driver can go through whole Europe. If we have to look the focus to the rail, there we have the big problems of interoperability. We had a lot of national companies. We get more and more private cargo companies. That's right. But we have very strictly trained driver regulations in 27 or 28 member states of the European Commission. We have a lot of regulatory authorities. We had a lot of different electric systems in kind of locomotive and safety regulations and market regulation. So there we have to look to all these problems. And I think one of the most successful tool could be here. Here is the ground. The basic problem is the digitalization.
So the basic problem is the digitalization. So to give us maybe some hints prior to the excellent keynotes we're gonna have afterwards. So is there a kind of a preparation you can go through before you make the decision where and what you start with? Is there a kind of a approach or of a mindset? It needs to be to change? Do you need to change your mindset before you enter this process?
I think we have the main target. It's the keyword maybe is decarbonization and the climate situation. And we know the transport systems are bringing a lot of pollution to this target. So we have, and I think the European Commission is very focused on these thematics. I hope my friend Helmut Hohenbichler is also in this webinar. So he had a lot of experience in this kind. So we had to bring Shift to Rail, for example, is a very good project of the European Commission, and the target is to bring more freight from the road to the rail, and all these efforts we have focused on this part.
Thank you so much for your insights. So we are now even more exciting for the speakers, and as I can see that Alexander Schimanofsky is already in the panel. Maybe he can start with his keynote. Can we arrange this from production side?
Ja. Alex, bitte starten.
So I think you're still muted, Alexander.
Second. Thank you. So I was not able to unmute myself.
Thank you, Alexander, for stepping in. Stage is yours.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to be here together and to do that very interesting information session for all the interested people here. I saw that Nathalie is not here, so you want me to start with my presentation, or?
Yes, okay. Please. So to step in, and that will slightly shift our schedule, if that is fine for you.
So let's see. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. I don't know if that box is still in here. Let me.
No, we only can see the presentation certification obligation.
Okay.
So this is what we see.
Okay. Sorry for that little complication right in the beginning.
No worries.
Certification obligation. Obligations are not much liked by many people. Why do we have a certification obligation at all? If we look back into history, there were several fatal accidents. I just picked two of them. The first one was in Asia. I think everybody remembers that terrible accident with more than 100 people killed. The reason for that accident was more or less inadequate maintenance. the maintenance processes and the steps of wheelset maintenance did not contain all the necessary steps and investigations to find out the failure of the wheel that finally caused this accident. So there is a definite connection to maintenance between this accident. The second accident, which finally turned out to be the reason for bringing into life things like ECM, was in Viareggio 2009. It's the upper part, the upper picture that you can see here, where gas wagons, liquid gas wagons, derailed due to a broken wheel, and 6 of those wagons exploded and devastated half of Viareggio and caused 32 fatalities. At that point of time, there was no system in place which can be compared to ECM. So the implications of those 2 and more accidents were the first maintenance regulations. The very first one was the European Visual Inspection Catalogue for wheels, which was for freight wagons only. And even the first EU-wide legislation, the first ECM regulation, was valid only for freight wagons. What we found there for the first time was a definition of maintenance functions to better understand the players, the stakeholders, and the roles in railway maintenance. Since 2011, several enhancements were necessary, and finally in 2019, the new ECM regulation was published. Now, this regulation is not only mandatory for freight wagons only. So each wagon in any European vehicle register has to be assigned to a specific ECM, which has to comply with the ECM requirements of the ECM regulation. No vehicle is allowed to run on the interoperable tracks, which is not assigned to an ECM. Another very interesting and very important difference to the old regulation is that we now have safety critical components. Safety critical components are those components who will lead to fatal accidents even with one single failure. That's more or less the definition of a safety critical component. This leads to a much closer interaction between the rolling stock manufacturers, who has to define those safety critical components for his products, and the ECM. And the ECM also has to report back to the railway community if one ECM finds out that another component on any railway vehicle might be safety critical. Also important is the mandatory application of the common safety method. The common safety method is a process tool for changes to the railway system, which defines for which changes which control mechanism has to take place, so that the system after the change still is safe, or still has at least the same safety level as before. Regarding ECM, this mostly affects the safety relevant processes, but also things like definition of safety critical components and their handling. And the last very important difference between the new ECM regulation and the old one is the ECM1, so the organization overall responsible for the wagon or vehicle maintenance, has the choice to either implement or integrate the sub-suppliers down to component level in their own quality management, including all the supervision, qualification, effort, etc. Or, and that's new, also lower level of the ECM pyramid can be ECM certified now, and by that the cooperation of different stakeholders and different levels of players is supported significantly with the new regulation. Well, so that you know why we are talking here, or why Boom was so nice to invite us here to that. Who is RCC, the Railway Competence and Certification Limited? We are an independent accredited body for the railway system in the European Union. We are so-called notified body who does all the conformity assessments of new railway vehicles, whether or not they are compliant to the TSI certification, to the technical specifications of railway vehicles which shall be placed on the market in the European Union. On top of those technical specifications, there are national rules. And for the national rules of Austria, we are so-called designated bodies. Most relevant for today, the ECM certification body. So we are an independent body who is allowed to certify, to audit certification, maintenance organizations and judge whether or not they are qualified to do maintenance on railway vehicles on the European market in the European Union. And last but not least, we are assessment body, judging the processes and projects being performed after that CSM regulation, the common safety method, which I explained a few minutes before. Well, if a company, if a maintenance provider wants to become an ECM, what does he have to do? Maybe there are some of you in the audience who are not ECM, but are thinking about becoming an ECM. So maybe this will help you a little bit how all that works. The first phase, which is quite a long and intensive one, and does not interconnect with the ECM certification body, is the preparation. So first is you have to know which kind of maintenance, which scope of maintenance you want to do. So the first step is to define the maintenance functions which are relevant for you. For those who are not too familiar with the ECM system, we are having 4 maintenance functions. The maintenance management function is, let me say, the overall roof organization for all that, having the overall and final responsibility for everything which is happening under its responsibility. This maintenance management function can sort out or perform in-house the other 3 maintenance functions. Function 2 is the maintenance development function, which, let me say, mostly provides the maintenance manuals and the maintenance content, which shall be done to have all the vehicles in a safe condition for all the time. This function 2 closely interconnects with function 3. Function 3 is the fleet management function responsible for bringing the wagons on the track, bringing the wagons out of service whenever needed based on the maintenance schedule, and also coordinates with the function 4, with the maintenance delivery function, as they place the work orders for what needs to be done on the wagon with function 4, or on the vehicle by function 4. So beside the maintenance function, you need to define which scope you will do in-house and what you will subcontract, which types of vehicles you want to maintain. For sure, it's a big difference if you maintain freight wagons or very complex tilting high-speed passenger trains, for example. And also very important is whether or not there are wagons for dangerous goods in your scope, because there are a lot of additional procedures and a lot of additional knowledge that you have to have if you want to do maintenance on wagons for dangerous goods. Based on all that information, the maintenance management system shall be established and implemented. That's very important before contacting the certification body. The second phase is to get in contact with the certification body, coordinate with him. We have an own data entry form to make it easy for all the applicants to share information with us, what they want to do in the future, and then apply for certification using the official forms of the ECM regulation. Based on that, the certification agreement has to be signed between the applicant and the certification body, and together with the application, the maintenance documentation in relation to phase 1 shall be supplied to the certification body. Phase 3 is the certification process itself. The certification process has more or less two or three stages. Stage 1 includes application review by the ECM certification body, which actually is a check if all needed documents are available, if all needed information about scope and the organization is available. And it is a first assessment of the whole ECM documentation to see if the system really is existing, if it's concludent, and if all the documents are available. Normally, the stage 1 activities are done remotely by the ECM certification body. So we normally share a data drive where the applicant places all his documents, and we have access there, or we provide the drive and go through all the system documents to see if the system is correctly structured, implemented, and complete. The stage 2, with stage 2, there is the deep dive then. Stage 2 normally takes place between 3 to 4 and 6-7 weeks after stage 1. Stage 2 is to evaluate if the maintenance system is really implemented and really has gone live in the organization. A very important thing is to check if all the competencies are in place. There is not only the management and the quality competencies, it goes down all the way to the workshop competencies and other things. Are the people qualified to put together the maintenance documentation and maintenance manuals? Are people qualified for welding, etc., etc.? So competencies is extremely important. By that, there are samples taken, for example, if all the job descriptions are here, if there are people to each job description, and then there are interviews with certain people to see if they have the competencies and if they really stick to the documents. So shortly speaking, all the processes, all the documents, and all the, let me say, documentation of performance has to be coherent, fit together as required by the ECM regulation. All that has a significant impact on safety, and therefore safety is one of the guiding things there. The stage 2 audit always is done on site by an auditor and at least one technical expert. It is normal to have only that 2-person team for the stage 2. Stage 2 takes between 1.5 and 3 days, depending on complexity of the organization. And if there are very tricky, if there is a very tricky scope, if the scope is very big, more than one technical expert might be necessary, because you can imagine that not all people understanding locomotives also understand wagons for dangerous goods. It is important to know that the audit times, which for sure are relevant for the budget and actually at the end for the cost of the ECM certification, are not purely defined by the certification body. There are guidelines by the certification scheme and other documents, and there is only a very limited chance for variation, which is in the responsibility of the certification body. The last step of the certification process itself is the certification decision. As we are having an accredited process here, there must be an independent committee which reviews the process of certification, including qualifications of the audit team and including documentation and everything else. And only if that internal independent committee of the ECM certification body releases all the processes and gives his okay, then the certificate can be issued. Well, what are key factors for ECMs? ECM is a very integrated and complex approach. So you have to have the organization, you have to have contracts with partners, you have to hold certificates or check certificates, etc. So all the points you see here are very closely related to the ECM function 1, the maintenance management function. Based on such organizations, let me say, the operative documentation and performance needs to be planned and checked and documented, beginning with vehicle documentation leading into the maintenance instructions, for sure including spare parts lists, and for sure specifically considering the safety critical components, including all the special processes there. This more or less is the scope of the maintenance of ECM function 2, the maintenance development function. Then we have the link between all that administrative and planning functions. It's the fleet management function, which places the work orders at the function 4, which takes the vehicles out and places them back in into operation, which actually is one of the most safety critical process in all the ECM system. So that's function 3. And at the end, there's the function 4 with the maintenance performance, maintenance delivery, also doing maintenance documentation and many other things. So there's a lot of factors, that's for sure, not all. There are many more factors, but the complexity results in that all those factors are very, very closely interconnected and have a very, very complex structure. Who has to communicate with whom? There are processes with very, very many parties in the process. So all that needs to be managed in a proper way. That actually leads to key issues during the certification audits, and that's where we pay utmost attention to when we are doing an ECM certification. The proof of coherence. So the ECM system needs to be complete. All the systems documents needs to be in place. That goes from overall management system documents down to every description of work and whatever. So the system documents are very, very complex. They also have to document the processes which need to be followed, etc. And based on that system documents, in the audit of stage 2, there are samples taken to see, is the system document available? Is the system document used in daily practical work? Do the people of daily practical work know the documents, use them, fill them in correctly, and at the end, are those documents stored for documentation reasons if anything happens, so that there is proof that everybody has done his obligations in the correct way. So as mentioned before, interviews and document checks and sampling is a very, very important part of that stage 2. And this for sure shows that it's quite a challenge, or it can be quite a challenge for the applicant, for the ECM, to have all that documentation and evidence available during the audit. The focus always is put on safety. Competence management is one of the most important things. Competences do not always have to be in-house. They can be subcontracted. For example, smaller companies very frequently subcontract the welding expertise according to EN 50085. So it doesn't have to be in-house, but the competence has to be available, and it has to be documented that it's clear, assigned, and who is the personal carrier of the competence. The processes regarding the safety relevant components are getting more and more important, and the interface management, I already mentioned that taking vehicles out of service and specifically bringing that back into service is an outer interface of the ECM, which needs a lot of attention. And finally, the ECM cycle to maintain, let me say, evidence that everything is done in a safe way is a 5-year cycle. With certification in the beginning and a yearly surveillance, which can be shortened if deemed necessary by the certification body. A few other things that you should be aware of if you want to become an ECM, or even if you are an ECM already. The maximum time from receiving the documentation during stage 1 to granting the ECM certificate is 4 months. So everybody better is prepared for that process, otherwise the 4 months getting very, very short. A significant difference between the old and the new ECM regulation is that now all non-conformities, not only the safety critical non-conformities, but also the non-critical non-conformities, which are detected during the audit, have to be closed prior to issuing the certificate. In the past, it was okay to only define measures for non-critical non-conformities and close them later on. That's not possible anymore. A hint for all who are new, who want to become newcomers, companies which are not active in railway maintenance for the time being and want to start also have to be certified before being started. So there is the way of a newcomer certificate, which only checks that the processes are in place, but for sure cannot take samples from practical ECM operation. That's why that certificate has a validity of only 1 year, And after that year, there is a normal process of new certification of an ECM. Well, as a conclusion to that short overview, ECM is very complex and highly integrated. The demands regarding actually all aspects of such a management system are really, really high. And that leads to the demand on software tools. With such complex systems, you better have a decent software tool. I sometimes wonder, we still have applicants and still have ECMs who document all their wagons and the maintenance schedules in Excel files. I always wonder how that works, but it seems to work. But that software tools really can help. And if you try and think about which software tool could be the right one for you, then take the ECM regulation and see if that software tools mirrors the requirements, the processes, etc. in there, and then you can judge pretty quickly if such a software is the right for complex ECM requirements. Okay, so thanks for your attention, and I would be happy if there would be any questions, comments, or whatever to that short presentation.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Very interesting presentation so far. And yes, I can only invite everybody of you to ask questions in the question box in your GoToWebinar panel. And as you type in your questions, I'm gonna ask one question by myself. So talking about documentation and how important it is to have all the documents and all the documentations prepared, how important is kind of a process documentation? So what can you recommend? What is the overall approach when it comes to documenting a process regarding the ECM certification and the preparation of the certification?
Well, maintenance of a railway vehicle always is a maintenance process. So you have the vehicle running out on the track, you have the maintenance intervals, and then you know when the vehicle needs to be taken out of service. And depending on the level of maintenance which shall be done on the vehicle, you have the operative process behind all that. So this is somehow also a logistic challenge to have all the parts available to comply with all the timing needs, etc. And for that, for sure, let me say, an operative maintenance management tool is very helpful. The complexity which results out of the ECM is that for every step of that maintenance, you have to document that the party doing that part of the process is qualified, trained, and knows what to do and documents everything. So you have a multi-dimensional system of process needs directly connected into documentation needs. And the main reason why you need a decent support tool for that is that complexity actually cannot be handled with any traditional things, especially if you consider that you have a lot of interfaces. For example, if you have an external function 4, the function 4 is providing all the documents resulting from the maintenance activities themselves. But you as ECM function 1, the maintenance management function, are responsible that that is stored and available. So for all those different aspects, there shall be processes in place and documentation in place. And that's why such a tool is so extremely important.
So you have said that you have there is a certain amount of time given for some parts of the certification process, but like providing a bigger picture out of your experience, what are indicators for companies that go faster through the whole process, so from transforming and then achieving the transformation, and for other companies that may take longer? So what are indicators to be faster, or maybe like put it in terms of better in the process? Are there indicators?
The indicator mostly is the complexity of maintenance. If you are a small ECM with very, very limited types of vehicles, it can be easier, but still, let me say, at the end, it all goes down to efficiency. And efficiency of a maintenance organization depends on availability of information. Every piece of information that you have or that you have to produce must be produced and made available quickly. So you need templates, you need to have fast access. You should not have to look where all those documents are. You should have them available right at the point. And this is important for efficiency and commercial, and at the end also technical success of an ECM. And this, going back to your question, to your initial question, is also important during the certification process, because if you are sitting in an audit and the auditor is asking you for a specific document that you have to look for the document for 10 minutes to see which maintenance has to be done on a vehicle, and then the inspector asks, show me the vehicle maintenance management documentation of one specific vehicle being connected to that system document, and you have to look again or even don't find that wagon, then you're really in trouble. So that's where your organization has to be aware of what you really need and what you can handle, let me say, in hard copy, and what you better handle with electronic processes and documentation.
Okay. So as there are no more questions from the audience, I once again thank you very much, Alexander, for kicking off the RailVoice webinar series. And yeah, maybe we're going to see you again down the road. And yeah, I hope you keep in the webinar, maybe ask some questions later. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too. And to all the audience, thanks for listening and thanks for being present. And if there should be any questions, so you also for sure can contact me or RCC directly in any ECM context. Thank you and have a good further webinar.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, so now it's an honor for us today to have Nathalie Duquenne with us. I hope she's already in the webinar. Yeah, I can hear her, but I cannot see her. Nathalie, are you there already?
Yes, I'm here. You cannot see me perhaps because my webcam is not connected. I will try to do it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you anyway.
Now
here
you can see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Good.
Thank you so much.
So you are not. I have to,
yeah.
I have to apologize, but I received yesterday your link, and I tried this morning, but unfortunately we have a security reason not to allow the staff to upload a new application. So I had to ask to my IT team. Is the reason that I'm a bit late, but I'm sorry for that. But the principle is to be here.
No worries. We slightly switched up the schedule, so everything is fine. And we are glad that you are here now. That is important for us. So you're not only advisor to the European Commission, but you're also project officer at the European Agency for Railways, right?
Yes.
And today you're gonna give us insights on what comes along with the revised regulation 2019-779 for the maintainers, keepers, and owners, right? So
yes, it's true. Okay.
Then the stage is yours. Thank you so much for being here. And
yes, I will try to share my screen because it is not my computer.
Okay.
You can see it?
Yes, works like a charm. We can see it.
Okay. So very happy to be here. I replace Michaela from the Commission because she had a problem this morning to present it. So I'm in the agency since 2007, and today and since some years, I'm involved in the regulation 445B4, and now I was responsible to provide to the Commission foundation for the revised regulation 779. So, and it has been voted last year. And now I follow the implementation of this regulation. So for today, what I would like to say and to explain, it is what is new in this new regulation 779 in comparison with the regulation 445. What it is very important in this new regulation, it's now it is mandatory for all ECM maintaining this type of vehicle, not only wagon, but locomotive, EMU, DMU, train set, and even on-track machine, they need to be certified. That it is the main objective, the main goal of this new regulation is to enlarge the scope of certification, not only for ECM maintaining wagons, but for all type of railway vehicles. It was the reason that we have revised the regulation. What it was important also to understand in this new regulation, there is a main important point. We would like to reinforce the exchange of information between the different actors. On this slide, you can see these different actors. We have railway undertaking, customer, keeper, ECM, infrastructure manager, so manufacturer, so and of course ECM certification body. In this revision of this regulation, we put especially an article 4 and 5 explaining and requesting that all these actors have to exchange information. And in this diagram, where you can see the different role of each actor, you can see around this big type of bus where there is important to exchange of information. So an ECM can exchange information with the keeper, with the manufacturer, especially about safety critical components, where we will have a slide after, and also infrastructure manager, railway undertaking. So we have to keep in mind that in this new regulation, it is important to have the key point of exchange of information. Now, concerning, and the person who presented before me explained very well this different function. We can say that in this regulation 779, there is no change at all in the maintenance management system. It means that we have always the function 1 dedicated to the maintenance management, the function 2 about the maintenance development, the function 3 about the fleet management, and of course, the function 4 concerning the maintenance delivery in maintenance workshop. There is no change at all in this revision of regulation. It is important to precise that when we speak, oh, there is a new regulation, yes, but concerning the maintenance management system is completely the same than before for the regulation 445. What it is new and what we have to work with the sector and with the expert of accreditation scheme and certification scheme, we have revised the accreditation scheme and certification scheme. To do that, we have organized a different meeting in a task force with different representatives of ECM certification body and the sector. And because we are under the umbrella of European Cooperation for Accreditation, we have submitted for an acknowledgement, endorsement, we have submitted this new revised accreditation scheme and certification scheme to EA, and we have received during the General Assembly of European Cooperation for Accreditation the endorsement of these two very important accreditation scheme to accredited the ECM certification body and the certification scheme. Because we were a bit late or not completely in accordance with the enter into force of this new regulation, we have concluded with EA that all ECM certification scheme have until June this year to be reaccredited, if I can say that, with the new accreditation scheme. It's the same. When I say new, it's just a revised accreditation scheme. What we have taken into account, it's a new version or the new standard 17065. Before it was 45011. So we have put that in the new accreditation scheme, and we have also explained more what it is important for the accreditation body to check the competencies. But after that, there is no change about it. The certification scheme was also revised because now we have about 10 years of feedback with the previous one. So we have be more clear with the different steps concerning, for example, the phase 1 with the audit and the phase 2 with the on-site inspection or on-site audit. So we have tried to be more clear with the different steps and also to give some examples about evidences than an ECM certification body has to request. What I would like to say on this slide is accreditation scheme contains requirement to be used, of course, by the accreditation body, but also by recognition body when assessing certification body performing ECM certification. Because there is different type of ECM certification body, it shall be also used by member states when the member state decided to designated NSA to act as ECM certification body. So to keep the harmonization, because what it is important, when an ECM receives a certificate from an accredited or recognized or NSA, the certificate has an European value. So we need to be sure that the people who will grant a certificate have the same competencies than the other. So for the two accreditation, for the two schemes, accreditation and certification, I put at the end of my slide the link where you can find the two accreditation and certification scheme on our public ERA webpage. This slide is also important because we receive a lot of question about the system of certification. Of course, we have in the regulation, the article 3.1, that it is important to have in mind that all ECM shall satisfy the requirement of Annex 2. So, to control this, we have different cases. We have the case 1, entity applies for becoming ECM for freight wagon. There is no change. What it is important to have in mind, no change. When you maintain freight wagon, it's mandatory when you are an ECM to be certified. So we have the case 2. All the other case scenario not covered in case 1 or in case 2, in case 3 that we will explain after. That it is for other ECM who would like to maintain other type of vehicle. For them, it's the same. The certificate is mandatory. So with this certificate, it is a compliance with Annex 2. This compliance will be checked via ECM certification process, and the certificate will be granted by a certification body. What it is important is the case 3. That is a type of exclusion, and I will explain after why. It is for railway undertaking or infrastructure manager who maintain their own fleet. It means that you are a railway undertaking and you operate exclusively, and I insist on the word exclusively, your fleet, and you maintain it. in this case, because there is no external other highway undertaking, you can ask that the requirements of Annex 2 in the new regulation will be assessed during the process of assessment that you have to request to the authorizing entity to have a safety certificate, just in this case. And in this case, when you ask that, you have to understand it is very important to understand that you will not receive an ECM certificate. You will be only allowed to operate your vehicle and to make yourself your maintenance. But it is not like a certificate. It's just a type of exclusion. Why? Because after speaking and exchange with the sector, we have in some countries some small highway undertaking with a small fleet of vehicles, and for them it will be too difficult to obtain or to go in a lot of process to obtain a certificate. So for this specific case, they can ask to be recognized a bit as ECM via the assessment of the safety certificate. Some words about transitional period that it is important. We have the Article 15 in the regulation. So the main important point date now is June 2022, where all ECM must be certified. We have some exception, I can say, due to the transitional period. Before the existence of the regulation 779, we receive a lot of requests about ECM maintaining other types of vehicle that they would like to be ready when the new regulation will arrive. So it was possible for an ECM to request an attestation of conformity with, of course, the same requirement. So we had around 150 attestation of conformity given before the new regulation. For them, the attestation of conformity will be valid until the end of the validity at the maximum in June 23. So for them, it is possible not to be certified in June 22, but in June 23. We have also in some countries national attestation for ECM or for maintenance function. They keep the validity until June 23 or June 24. That it's just because in some country before this regulation we had some different attestation. So because we put in our new regulation an Article 4 concerning safety critical components and the use of SIT, this part, it is at the end of the slide, this part concerning safety critical component will enter in force in June this year, because we need sometimes to prepare to work about the methodology concerning safety critical component. For all ECM certificate for wagons, of course, if they were certified under the regulation 445, they keep the certificate until the end of validity, but of course they have to be monitored by the ECM certification body each year, but they keep this certificate until the end of validity of the certificate. As I explained just at the beginning, and I would like to assist on that, in June 2022, ECM certificate for other vehicles than wagon, when I say that, it's also for wagons, but they need to be certified and the certification is mandatory. Now I would like also to speak about news in the regulation. We have introduction with Article 4 of safety critical component, and that it will be mandatory in June 2021, that it is something important, new in the regulation. And we have also in this Article 4 the point that the ECM shall use the safety alert IT tool to inform the rail sector about new or unexpected safety relevant findings concerning the maintenance activity. That is something new also. And we have a task force dedicated to that to explain more what they have to do. And we will publish this guide before June 2021. Another point important, we have in the Annex 5 a template, or not a template, but a list of what an ECM has to put concerning the annual report that they have to send to ECM certification body. And I would like to finish with what you can find, because in ERADIS is a public database, and you can find in this public database a lot of information about ECM. At the moment, and I put at the end of March what we have in this database, we have 470 certificate valid, and on this, at this moment, we have 432 certificates for freight wagon. So the other are, it is the beginning of record of ECM certificate for ECM maintaining other type of vehicle. And in this table, I don't want to read all, but I put the total number, and you can see after the number of certificate valid in Germany and also in Austria. So you can see now the first certificate for locomotive, for EMU, DMU, for high-speed train, for passenger cars, and also for on-track machines. I put also the link when you can have access, and all this information you can make a research per country, per type of certificate, and that it is public. We have also the information about the ECM certification bodies and their contact. I hope that it was clear, that I have highlighted the main point in the revised regulation, and I will be happy to answer to your question if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very condensed insights, Nathalie. And actually, there are already two questions. I mean, it's one question, but it was posted twice because people are so interested in. So we have heard what's the current situation. We have heard what like actually has already changed, and the ECMs need to prepare for. But are there already plans for the future? So can we have a short overview or some insights of what is planned for the future and what will come next regarding the ECM and the ECM regulations?
You would like to say for this new revised regulation, what it is foreseen to have in future about evolution of this regulation?
Exactly, yeah. What will come next? Yeah, so.
For the moment, we are just at the beginning of the application. As you can see, you have the first certificate for ECM maintaining other vehicles and wagon. It is, for the moment, we will check at the agency, and we will help the sector to understand better when they are ECM, what they have to produce to show to ECM certification body. It is the reason that in the next weeks we will publish a guide, a revised guide on ECM. It will be helpful for the ECM certification body, but also for the different railway stakeholders to understand better what it is important in this certification, so that it will be in the next weeks. As I explained just a bit, we will put also a guide to explain to ECM what they have to report in the safety alert IT tool. And in future, that it's a big challenge, and we put that in the new regulation. We would like to see if the exchange between the different actors will be put in place, and how the ECM can show how they manage the safety critical components. That it is something very new that we don't have, not so strong in the previous one, but to focus more on safety critical component. And maybe in the future, perhaps we will change a bit and to have a design authority or something like this to avoid all this type of check and monitoring, a bit like in the aviation, but that I think it will be in a long future. We have first to see the implementation of this new regulation, how the sector can deal with it, if they need dissemination, a bit like today, if they need help to help them to understand better that it is in the next future. But after, perhaps we can go in another concept, a bit like aviation, but that we have to have a first step first on the implementation of this regulation now.
Mm-hmm. And are there, talking about public transport, so underground, trams, things like that, what are the plans for this sector?
That is a difficult question for me. What I can say about the certification of entity in charge of maintenance for public transportation. Now, as it is mentioned in the Article 1 of the regulation, we consider all the vehicles described in Article 14 of the Safety Directive. It means that it's a choice of the member state. If a member state would like to apply safety directive to public transport, in this case, of course, they have the same regulation, and for ECM, there is a need to be certified. But that it is a decision of the member state to include public transport or not. It is an option. At this moment, we don't have a lot of countries like this because you know that public transport is a bit different from highway transport because there is no interoperability. For example, problem more interchangeability, it is not the same. So at this moment, we don't have a lot of member states who include public transport. In future, that is difficult to say. I just explained, just a short explanation that for public transport, except some cases, we don't have interoperability problem, more interchangeability. So we have already received request of ECM for public transportation to receive attestation or to be certified. We have some of them, because it's important also for them to show to the others that they maintain correctly the fleet. At the moment, there is nothing about that. It depends on the decision of the member state. But I'm sure that if you are an ECM for public transport and you would like to show to your clients that you apply the regulation, there is no problem for an ECM certification body to grant an attestation. I think there is no problem to do it, to show that they follow the certification or the maintenance system put in the regulation. I think it could be possible, no problem.
Thank you so much, Nathalie, and thank you for this keynote and the extensive answering of our questions. So welcome. I hope you may stay. Thank you so much, and I hope you stay some more minutes with us, maybe. And okay. We wish you a very nice day and successful day. Thank you so much, Nathalie. Thank you for being here.
You too. Thank you, and enjoy your webinar. It's very important, the maintenance activity. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And as we are talking today about digitalization in an ECM-driven environment, we want to see what does the right path of digitalization in ECM-driven environment look like. And that will show us Helmut Hohenbichler, the Senior Vice President of Boom Rail Solutions. Hello, Helmut. I think you're still muted.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
So tell us why we should not miss out on this opportunity.
Okay, I hope you can see already my screen.
Yes,
yeah,
perfectly.
At first, thank you for the opportunity to be a speaker here. The topic of this webinar is a very interesting and a very deep impacting topic in rail business, because in my past, in the early 2000s, in the early millennium year, I was responsible for IT at the Austrian Railways at the first time with the technical services, responsible for all maintenance topics over there, and after that at the Rail Cargo as a CIO. And when I changed from technical service, from the maintenance IT responsibility I had to the Rail Cargo, ECM in the third railway package was getting in force. And I was a little bit scared about that at this time, because that what we have seen at this time is that there is coming up a lot of effort, of administrative effort to the railway undertakers, to the maintenance, to the workshops, responsible peoples, and as well for the keepers, and as well for the engineers and manufacturers as well too. It was a really hard stuff, and now when we taking a look at that, it's a little bit difficult still, because with ECM regulation 7079, here we have a very comprehensive regulation with a lot of topics and difficulties and administrative procedures to operate only a simple train. And that is what is a little bit a burden for the rail business as well too. But you always have to see it from two perspectives. The one perspective is from the business side, and on the other hand, it is from the IT side. And so we started in this time already a kind of digitalization for that. And at least the ECM 7079 is based on the European Union guidelines 2006 797 and 798, and also as well with the top TSI and the top TSI for passengers and locomotives, as well as for freights. And with the new regulation, there was some new scope, but at least it's about it's the topic, or the aim from the entity in charge for maintenance is the safety from the rolling stock, that we always have to keep in mind. And it's not at least only for the topic that some people get insured, just like Mr. Schimanofsky mentioned before with Eschede or via Reggio, where a lot of people was insured and killed as well too. But the most thing is that not at least the personal impact and this big incidents. There are lots of small incidents in the rail business as well too, not daily, but we have a lot of them. And if you watch the European report for incidents, there are still a lot of incidents with impact, especially for the infrastructure and for the rolling stock as well too. And this is a very high commercial impact for each company, for each involved party in this process. My biggest challenge, I think, will be that I get finished in 20 minutes with my speech here. So probably I will speed up a little bit with some slides. Yes, as I mentioned, safety of the rolling stock is a big aim from the entity in charge for maintenance. And if you look for the risk analysis, in which you have to have if you get the certification for entity in charge for maintenance, that the commercial values you are calculating in the risk analysis are the most and heaviest values, and so it is. If you get it in a balance with the procedures you have to implement and with all this administration, you get a really fast and return of investment, or a good break even how to deal with these topics. If you take a look at the topics from the entity in charge for maintenance at the 779, we have here the subject matter and the scope. The subject matter, of course, is all the safety critical components, which you have take care for the documentation of that, but much more. With the 779, the entity in charge for maintenance get expanded to all rail vehicles in heavy rail. That is a very big issue that was coming up for a lot of railway undertakings and public transportation companies as well too. And in the cargo business, you already had to deal with that, and so there was a big new demand for implementation and for organizational transformation in these companies. And if they're looking for the needs and the requirements for entity in charge for maintenance, they're always blogging a little bit, and they're looking, wow, oh my God, which kind of obstacles this will be. And what the next thing was the entity in charge for maintenance is bringing up is the obligations of the parties involved. And that's a very interesting part, because in the history of railway business, these obligations and these responsibilities was the most time mixed up in the legal entity in the big national railways companies, and it was not clear where is the border between the line between each responsibilities. And with the entity in charge for maintenance, there was a regulation given which makes these responsibilities clear, these obligations. And that's, you can see it from any perspectives, but we understand it as a very good decision to do that, because so the handover and the process handover between the different domains is very clear and very sharp even. The certification process, we heard it before, is a very complex and a very hard one. And it's always the question if it's a burden or is it a relief. But so we'll see as well with the cooperations. As an entity in charge for maintenance expects that all the parties involved are doing cooperations together. And it's not so easy to do that, because as well in the past, we know it, the topic, for example, the ownership, data information ownership, who is the owner from the information and who wants to share that, it's not a quite easy question. And probably in the future, or in the near future, the ERA can here help the companies to make this clear, which kind of information has to be transferred to improve the safety in the railway business as well too, and not to keep the data in his own. The next opportunity was given is the modeling from outsourcing. We heard it before as well. It's also probably a relief, or on the other hand, probably a burden to do that, because responsibilities outsourcing is always a kind of different topic. I mentioned the provision of information with the corporations as well too, and not at least the organization and the requirements of asset management criteria to get certificated. It's a big challenge. It's a very enforcing topic for the management of the organization of each company entity in charge to implement. If you're looking for the parties involved for operating a train, you find primary these 5 roles. The entity in charge roles, here always noticed with ECM2 with the maintenance development function, the ECM3 with the maintenance management function, and the maintenance delivery function as ECM4. And they are covering primarily the operational entity in charge for maintenance topics. The ECM1 part is primarily the organizational part, as Mr. Schimanofsky mentioned before and explained it right good. But for operational doing to operate the train, ECM2 to ECM4 are necessary. But as well, the railway undertaker, which are guided by the technical specification for interoperability from the operations part, and as well from the infrastructure part, the infrastructure manager. Anyone in this combination is generating data and needs data from each other. And what is now given this entity in charge is that the cutting edge between ECM2, ECM3, and ECM4 is very clear and hard. But we have to exchange this data, this information. We have to provide maintenance plans. We have to provide technical files, technical dossiers from the ECM2 to the ECM3 and to the ECM4. We have to provide data from the ECM3 to the operations part. And as well, the ECM3 have to exchange data with the ECM4 with all the stabling information for the maintenance planning and so on. And this, on the other hand, the ECM4 has to receive the maintenance documentation, the maintenance record for that. The regulation itself, ECM, only says how to do that on a very high level. But in detail, what the content is from each of these exchange is not described, and you have always check it for each part of that. And normally, this functionality, and the most examples I know, it's getting manually. And if you have a very high complex procedure to do that, and you have a very wide range of technical opportunity possibilities, for example, for freight wagons and as well for construction maintenance vehicles, OTMs, and as well for the passengers or high complex trains or high-speed trains and so on. There are high different data types and data information which you have to exchange. And it's quite not possible to do that manually. In that way, for example, that if you have an audit and the inspector is coming and you want to get the information for that and to bring that up in 10 minutes. On a manually way, on a manual process, this is extremely hard to do that. So what does the ECM regulation mean for that, at least? From the perspective as a wagon keeper or a vehicle keeper, from the perspective of a manufacturer or a maintenance developer, from the perspective of a workshop, it looks like an administrative obstacle. Or is ECM disruptive, or is it even a game changer? We will take a look at that questions. So at the first time, we have to check what means digitalization at all. Digitalization is a very winged word, at least, and you hear it in any industries, and it's very wide. But I want to take it down to the ground for entity in charge for maintenance. In the topic for entity in charge of maintenance, digitalization would mean that the data and the information exchange between all parties involved on the maintenance process and on the operational process will be automatically digitalized. That means that the data exchange do not need any manual impact. And that's also a hint to the European Union, to the ERA, to to support these processes with a framework, with a base framework on information which we could exchange. On the other hand, this data exchange, especially between ECM2, ECM3, and ECM4, have to be implemented, because only if you do that automatically, you can keep all the information together. And there are different types, there are different domains of data. The ECM2 with his maintenance manuals, with a list of safety critical components, he have to hand it over to the ECM3 and as well to the ECM4. And that should be going automatically and versioned. So you always take sure that you have the right version for each vehicle series or component series, to do the right maintenance for that. It's only in a regular way, only in a regular way. There's no improvement. It's only to take care that you can do it in the frame from the regulation. The next is from the ECM3, the maintenance planning with maintenance strategies, or the maintenance plan was given from the ECM2 to get in order, to order it at the ECM4. It's not the quiet process. You have to check if the ECM4 has all the competences to do this, exactly for this vehicle type, exactly for this type of maintenance we have to do. If you are an ECM3 with a very wide range on vehicle types, with a very wide range on maintenance manuals and so on, so you have a little bit of work to do to check this out and to manage that you do not any failure with this. And on the other hand, if you're doing the stapling planning and you are ordering the maintenance at the workshop is finished and the maintenance file is coming back to the ECM3. The ECM3 is responsible to check it, to validate it, if the maintenance documentation is complete and correct, just like advice from the ECM2, and bring it together to his vehicle file. That means that the vehicle himself is the pivot point from all these transactions. The vehicle, the rolling stock, is the center of the universe, you can say, for the ECM, because all is turning around them. And only if you have this center point under control, you can manage all the other four topics as well too. So, is it an administrative obstacle? We find not at least, because the opportunity we have, that we can take a clear distinction between the ECM domains, with a handover from the technical dossiers to the ECM3, and from the ECM3 as well to the ECM4, and bring all the data and information back. From the process perspective, it's not so difficult to do that. Even if you're looking from the basic process, just like ECM is defining this process with these handovers, and in the back release to service and return to operation, and the safety report, which are going back to the ECM2, it wouldn't be any problem. And if you do it and implement this in an automatic way with process management and so on, and you're using an adequate software for that, which is explicitly designed for that, for these ECM processes, so is this documentation need only a side effect at all. Is it disruptive? And this is a game changer, the second question for that. at least this is an opportunity to build a digital twin. If you take the vehicle in the focus of all your handling as a keeper, and you are connecting it with all the IoT devices, sensor and telemetric devices, if you're joining that all together with environmental data, for example, or the operations data and the logistical data you get from the vehicle, at least you get a digital twin from your vehicle with a file for that all, and you get a 360 and 360 degrees and for 365 days view to the vehicle, and every time and every minute you know exactly what is the health state from your vehicle for the components behind. And this is the basis for condition-based maintenance. That means that we have a real-time health and a view on the real-time operating conditions of the vehicle to the vehicle or its components. And the components with his own maintenance strategies and his own maintenance demands give you the information, for example, the hours of use or the mileage from some boogies or some wheel sets and so on, and they are noticing, hey, I have some need for maintenance. And that, on the other hand, is the opportunity for predictive maintenance. That means that preventive condition-based or corrective maintenance indications defines the type and scope of duration of maintenance and stabling plans. If the vehicle is on track, is on operation, and there are coming up some indications from the components or from the vehicles, you can, in this kind, collect your maintenance demands and planning dynamically your staging plan and the duration for that. In the window of the workshop, for example, if you have 8 hours time, you can say, okay, I do this component, I'm doing this preventive, and I have some corrective indications as well too. And so you fit your maintenance demand to the workshop window. That's the idea. That's what's getting possible with it. And not at least, to have the vehicle as a focus, all the activities you're doing for maintenance on the vehicle and also as well for the operations, you can build an digital asset biography for that, the life cycle act, but not alone only for the vehicle, as well for the safety critical components too, because they are part of the subsystems from the vehicle, and that is an opportunity that is given by this regulation and by these procedures. So at least, what does it mean? The question was, is the ECM regulation an administrative obstacle? Is it? We see not really. It gives you the opportunity for a greenfield approach to set up your processes, your maintenance processes, your maintenance and fleet management for the vehicles on a greenfield, on a new level, and so to make your processes tiny and high efficiency. Is it disruptive? Yes, of course, because we have a lot of opportunities and possibilities for new processes, for new maintenance techniques at the technically high end. What's on the market right now, for example, the condition-based maintenance, or for example, the predictive maintenance, and not at least you fulfill all the ECM regulation need with an asset biography, and that is what's getting possible with digitalization in an ECM-driven environment. So I'm finished with my speak so far. I hope I'm still in time, or we're closing time. Okay. So are there any questions? IoT means a lot of data, the consolidation. is critical to assign to the right task at the maintenance. How do we need to integrate in the process? How deep do we need to go? Yeah, I see there is a question, and the question is, IoT means that means a lot of data. Exactly that it is, yeah. And the vehicles, high-end vehicles, are producing a huge amount on data, but you need only a subset from them. And at least it is a different approach to do this, to handle with that. I know typically two, or we recommend two ways. One way is the data are qualified and reduced and interpreted by the manufacturer or by the ECM2 maintenance developer, and you only get qualified indications for components for the vehicles. For example, if some bearing is hot and so on, you get an indication for that. And so at the next stop in the workshop, you take a diagnostic for that. Or for example, to proceed all the information from the MVP, from the multi-vehicle paths and the onboard controlling unit, and the manufacturer is giving some new indications for that to check some components. And on the other hand, there is a real-time information directly from the sensors. That means, for example, on a diesel engine, the oil pressure or the oil temperature, or from the door control, the motor, electromotor from the door motor is measuring his current and the voltage in combination with environmental data like temperature and humidity. You can make an interpretation or to have some reference tables with thresholds, and if there are some exceptions and there are more than 1 time or 10 times, you making a prediction indication, for example, to change this motor. And that at least is a treat management topic that's also very important, and these opportunities are right given now with this digitalization things given by the ECM.
Thank you, Helmut. Thank you very much for your presentation. So then there is one more question from my side.
We need to give a basic for digitalizations to ECM. There is another question I see here. Is there a standard offer approach from the ECM to move forward on digitalization? Yes, definitely. Please watch our homepage or get in contact directly to me at rail.boomsoftware.com. We have a fully integrated solution for that. And as I mentioned before, it's native approved to the ECM process with this different domains, and with this hard clearance between the domains ECM2, ECM3, and ECM4, and as well for the connecting IoT devices to the vehicle or to the components, and especially for the wheel sets. Also the wheel sets, the monitoring and the surveillance from the wheel sets, according to EN 15313, is also a part that we directly have in our software.
So can you hear me, Helmut?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, very well. So then, thank you so much for your presentation. And I have one more question to you. As in the ECM structure, like ECM 1 to 4 are kind of strictly separated. And what do you think? So how to tackle this issue, as we need to have basically the information everywhere? How can we handle this, and then how can this be managed by digitalization?
How can this managed by the digitalization? The type of data and information are very different and in each domain. And from our perspective, or from my perspective, it's only possible to do it on a digital way. That means that you generate objects for that and hand them over. And the definition from each of these objects has to be, or can be, just like we do it in our software, in a very standardized way. So bring it down to that what it basically needs for it, and not more. You know, a railway business is a very high-tech driven, a very technically driven environment, and all the technicians are very likely and fast in details and a lot of data information, and we need that and that and that, and that you have to be that you have to manage from a digitalization topic. Too much information, or information you do not really need, is not too good in an operational process. The focus has to be, if you talk about digitalization in rail business as well too, that you only bring this information to the screen or to the user, which he needs exactly right now in his process. And on the other hand, to pick up the information directly there on this point where the information is born. What get that means, for example, to get directly to the wheel set, and if you're measuring the wheel set, you're generating this data, and on this part to pick it up and bring it directly to the data store or to the software. That's what we understand what digitalization should be or can be, and can bring an big advantage in this business. Data storage, at least, is not a big problem today. You have some technical solutions for that. That means time serial databases or data hoop or data lakes and so on. The very difficult thing, at least, will be to interpret this data. That means from the IT side that you have people with competences who can do that. This is calling the data scientists, data analysis, and that will be a very, very hard thing in the future as well too.
Thank you so much. Maybe we're gonna deep dive into this at our round table afterwards. And for now, thank you very much for the insights.
Welcome.
So there is a saying that no battle plan survives the first contact with the enemy. And if we replace battle with the implementation of ECM procedures, and the enemy we replace with the obstacles you're going to face when entering a certification process, then Wolfgang Seidl has a lot of frontline experience on this. And he will give us some insights from his work at the quality management of InnoFreight solutions. And welcome to the stage, Wolfgang. I hope you're ready with us.
Hello, Lucas. You can already hear me and see my presentation?
Yes, we see it and we can hear you.
And hopefully now also see me.
Maybe you have chosen the wrong webcam. You can switch this on the camera icon if this is possible.
Give me just one second. I will. So now it should work. Hello,
yes,
everybody.
It works. Hello.
So my name is Wolfgang Seidl. I'm working for InnoFreight, as already announced. I'm the quality manager. So how should I say? My main daily business is ECM certification, and also colleagues in the same department are dealing with the daily operation, so daily appliance with the ECM system. And I was also, or I am, the project leader for applying the BOOM software. So I will give you a short overview about the presentation for today. I will try to shorten it a little bit, that we are not completely blowing up the time plan. First of all, some words about the InnoFreight group, because also our, how should I say, highly innovative and highly fast ongoing business model is even complicating the ECM or our ECM activities, I would say. Then I will speak a little bit about the daily ECM business, so with which issues we are dealing on a daily basis with. Then we will speak about critical success factors or challenges during the ECM activities. And last but not least, about the transformation process, so how InnoFreight ECM was going digital. And here I want to pick out this productive migration, because now we are right in this project phase. And it's also, as we have heard from the former speakers, a very important step to have the right data inside of the software or even the ECM framework. So let's start a little bit with InnoFreight. So main activities we are performing are or is developing innovative rail freight transport and logistics systems. So more or less we are complete logistic provider. So we are designing the wagons, the upper structure, and also the unloading technologies. And our complete, I would say, product portfolio is designed or is concept with a modular equipment solution. So we have, I would say, small amount of wagons and a high amount of upper structure, and in combination with the different variants, we are really flexible and can adapt really quickly to the customer needs. Only some short facts. Now we are performing 1.5 million unloadings per year. I think until now we have a little bit more than 16,000 containers in use. We are speaking about 2,000 wagons, nearly 60 forklifts for unloading, 6 stationary unloading machines, and altogether in Europe we are rocking with 115 employees, the railway business. Also, how should I say, a little bit company structure. Don't focus too much on this organigram, but what I want to tell you with this is that our, how should I say, headquarter is settled in Bruck, so in the heart of Austria, I would say, and our sales and service daughters or our sales and service companies are spread all over Europe. So, for example, from complete north down to also one sales and service guy is in south of Italy. So many languages and also many different cultures. Let's a little bit speak about our daily ECM business. So it always depending on the separate customer project. We will speak about it a little bit later, but we could be the owner of the wagon, could be the keeper, and unfortunately we are certified for ECM 1 to 3. Different stages were already explained before. So what I have to point out here, we have until now no ECM 4 certification. So each maintenance activity or maintenance work or even inspection which is related to ECM has to be outperformed by a subcontracting company. And also this is, how should I say, raising or influencing the complexity of our ECM, our daily ECM business. And I have also listed here some examples of our daily ECM issues. So for sure, preventive corrective maintenance or only inspections. So renewing braking shoes, wheel set renewing in different stages, let's call it like this. For example, simply greasing. And what is a little bit special for InnoFreight is that our wagon is not allowed to go in empty status. So as you can see, the wagon here on these two pictures, it's not allowed to be driven without upper structure. So also upper structure is in our case influencing the wagon, and for example is also changing the complete labeling of the wagon. So for example, a weight table or also some other labels or numbers which are attached directly on the wagon are influenced by the upper structure. And for sure, we are also dealing with inspections, or how should I say, with maintenance after some abnormal usage or some abnormal situations, for example, accidents, as we have heard them before. On the lower picture, you can see until now we have 3 different wagon types, together with some different variants of bogies, wheel set. So I would say complexity of our product range is growing daily. Let's speak about now about the first main point of today's presentation, so about the critical success factors, or let's call it challenges. I have divided this part into 3 subcategories: general challenges, then we will speak about the ECM related challenges, and also some IT related challenges with a little bit outcome. For example, if we are taking a look to the general InnoThread related challenges, for example, high challenges here are business model. So if I'm only taking the ownership of the wagon, we are renting wagons, we are selling wagons. So it's also depending, for example, also keeper function. Some wagons we are owning, we are the keeper, we have sold the wagons, we are the keeper anyway, or we are, how should I say, purchasing the keeper as a service, so a different company is taking keeper of our wagon. Then also when we are taking a look to the ECM, daily ECM work, on some wagons we are only ECM 1 and we are subcontracting stage 2, 3 and 4, or we are also dealing with wagons where we are doing ECM 1 to 3, so only ECM 4 is outsourced. And here we are facing the first issue, that due to the high amount of different contracts with different shades of responsibility, the administrative view is a really complex and high one. So for example, for our ECM2 employees or ECM3 employees, it's really hard to, how should I say, to keep the overview about all the contracts, because if you are picking out 2 wagons from the fleet, they have completely, or InnoThread has here completely different shades of responsibilities. So also this was this is a big challenge for us. And as we are growing rapidly since years, as you can see, we have started with our ECM business in 2018. We have also already started in 2017, but it became more intensive in 2018 for the first time with 150 wagons, and now we are up to a little bit more than 500 wagons, and in 2 years we will have 1,000 wagons in our own ECM regime. So let's come to the second part of challenges. I would call it them related to the ECM constellation. First of all, we are not certified according ECM 4. So all workshop activities are subcontract. And as our sales and service daughters or our customers, and also therefore the complete wagon fleet is spread over whole Europe, so from north to south of Italy, for example, or from Ukraine to Portugal, it's also, how should I say, really hard for us in communication with the workshop is really hard for us. And also, how should I say, because of the wide area, we have many workshops with different qualifications, many workshops with different, how should I say, because we have different series of wagons. Also, therefore, if we are taking only one simple task, greasing the buffers, for example, workshop A is certified for greasing the buffers on series X, but workshop A is not certified for greasing the buffers on series Y, for example only. So also here, this competence matrix of our sub-suppliers is getting on a daily basis bigger and bigger, I would say. As we have also heard, spare part management is always an issue. Until now, we have, I would say, approximately 15 variants. So different wagon types in combination with different components, for example. Here we are facing, I would say, one big challenge, because now the number of wagons is combined to other, how should I say, national railway undertakers, a really small one, but we have to guarantee even the same availability for spare parts. So also here we are, how should I say, facing a big challenge, that we are keeping our spare part stock as low as possible for us, but as high as if it's needed to guarantee the availability of spare parts. And as I've also mentioned before, because all the workshops are spread over Europe, way of communication, the standard of documentation is varying in a wide area. So we have different language standards, for example, also within Innofreight. It's really complex for us, because if we are then not speaking about only ECM for the wagons, we are now setting up more or less the same system for our upper structure. We have also language issues inside of Innofreight, and for sure also with the different workshops. And as I've also mentioned, for example, a check of wheel set from Sweden looks like does not look like the same like from south of Italy, for example. And also here we are, with our new software solution, we are creating now one standard within Innofreight and also with our external partners. Let's come to the third area of challenges. For example, now, as I think Mr. Schimanofsky has already mentioned, putting all these processes and all this data into some simple Excel lists is not working, how should I say, on a daily basis. And here we are facing complete big issues, because now everything is within some Excel lists. So the complete wagon history, complete component history, list of suppliers, which supplier, how should I say, which supplier is certified for which repair work for which series of wagon. It's completely in Excel lists. So how should I say, now implementing the BOOM software, for sure we are establishing higher security mechanisms against unauthorized access, because this was also a problem in the past. And second big issue is that we have some mechanisms within the systems, within the BOOM software, to avoid some human mistakes, for example. So you are not allowed now to type in the wrong control digit, for example, or even the control digit is calculated by BOOM itself. Or, for example, component number is unique and component number is only existing once in the system. Or, for example, you are not allowed to put some ECM4 activities to a workshop which is not certified for it, or which is not certified for this series. And a little bit, how should I say, an outcome or an outlook, because I'm really proud to show you this lower point. And now we are speaking about only ECM implementation with BOOM for our wagons. But now we are also in a second project phase, I would call it like this. And we are also implementing more or less the same system. So ECM, or based on ECM also for upper structure. And for example, now the BOOM application is for sure mainly operating in this daily usage or in daily operation. So complete project life or complete life cycle is within the system, as also former speakers have spoken about. For sure, also complete maintenance work, complete maintenance activities with all surrounding data, and also afterlife is put it into BOOM. Our ERP system is directly communicating with BOOM application, And now with the second project phase, we are also implementing the complete quality assurance. So also for wagons and upper structure, complete quality assurance with all checklists, documents, and so on will be also inside of the boom application. And for sure also the order input. So I would call it like this, that you have the complete product life cycle. So from ordering the asset to the scrap yard, complete inside of the new boom application. So let's now come a little bit to this transformation process, how Innofried ECM was going digital. As you can see here, we have chosen a normal waterfall model for project management, so no agile or scrum model or something like this. And I want a little bit to point out also the challenges here, because as you can see at the first step, for sure, preparation is an important one, really important one. We were also facing then in the later project steps, that preparation and also target concept, which was created with Boom together, was not in that detail that we are, how should I say, taking it from the first step and just applying it. So there were also some redesigns of the target concept. Then it was going on with initial customizing, and for sure a big part of full customizing coding of the software of the application itself. We have started in a really early phase with migration test to our ERP system or to our Innofried OS. With Innofried OS, this I've forgotten before, sorry for that. With Innofried OS, we are now also able to get mileage and actual GPS location inside of the Boom software. So now it's also possible that we are planning our maintenance activities according to the driven mileage of the wagon, for example. And this also, how should I say, makes it possible to speak about predictive maintenance or something like this. For sure, then end user training, user acceptance tests, these are normal steps when you are applying a new software. Productive migration, we are calling the general import of the data. So transferring the old data or the old database, which is now in Excel or in various Excel files, to the new Boom application. And then we have milestone, or one of them, or biggest milestone, I would call it like this, of the go live. And then we have only startup and normal operation phase. And now I want to a little bit point out more this productive migration, because what also former speakers have announced, that it's necessary to have good processes, for sure, to have the right tool for proceeding the data, if it's now an Excel list or an high precise application. And third point is that, how should I say, you need the right data at the right time in the right data quality. And everybody of us know the phrase shit in, shit out, and it's like this. It's compared to the daily ECM business, this is the perfect slogan for data quality. And now let's take a focus on this project step, productive migration. So also in this import phase, let's call it like this, we have 5 main steps. So first of all, again, preparation. So analyzing of the existing database, all our Excel lists regarding structure, quality, usage, and also format of the actual database. Because what we have found out, it now sounds like a little bit childish, but date format is not always the same, I would call it like this. A second main step is reduction of the data volume. Why? If you are reducing the volume from the data which you are transferring, you are also reducing the mistakes you are making. And you are also, how should I say, also implementation and also import will be then faster. But in nowadays, with all our processing power. This is not even, but biggest advantage is that if you are reducing the volume of the transfer data, you're also reducing the possibility to make a mistake. Third point is then export of the source data. For sure, you have to define which data you want want to export and also want to have a new system. Then also here, last point of this third process step is really the export of the useful data. Then fourth point is mapping. So create the connection between the old attributes, the old database, and also the new database, because what we have also found out that we are creating now with the Boom application, many new attributes we were not thinking before. So here you have here we have to also create the mapping between old and new source, and last but not least, then the real import of the exported database into the new Boom application, and how should I say, also the completement with the surrounding, for example, like certifications of the workshops or something like this, or also the ECM2 activities, like putting in this complete maintenance instructions, maintaining strategies, and so on and so on. So I would say thank you for your attendance. And if you have some, because this was only now a short overview, if you have some deeper questions, you can also call me via phone or write me an email. Just contact me directly and we will speak about some details.
I already have a deeper question for you. Thank you too, Wolfgang. Thank you very much for those insights. And there is already a question related to your presentation. Well, like you already said, garbage in, garbage out. So we have to pay attention to the process designs or to the digitalization design. But in general, how important was it for you to evaluate your existing processes before you translate them into digital processes? I mean, the thing is, like we all know, digitalizing a bad process is then still a digitalized bad process, right? So yeah. Can you give us some insights on this as well?
I would say here we have made one of our biggest mistakes at implementing the new application. Luckily, we have found out in a really early step of the customizing or coding phase that, how should I say, our thoughts about the existing processes were too poor. So first of all, we have created the wrong target concept, or how should I say, target concept was not in that detailed way that Boom was just taking the package and code it then according to it. So I would say we have not thought about the wrong processes, but not in that detailed way that we could just take this concept and code it and then use it. So what I want to point out, for sure, if you're thinking about the wrong processes, this is worst case scenario. But also we have faced a big issue that we are not we had not thought of in this detailed way. So from my point of view, thinking about the actual processes, that they are right and in the right way, in the right detailed way, is, how should I say, necessary from the first point on, because without these thinkings or without this entrance step, let's call it like this, you're not able to implement a software. If it's Boom or if it's an ERP system, you're not able to do it anyway.
Okay, so you need to put a lot of attention on the requirements engineering before you enter the transformation process in the first place. Yeah. Okay. So then thank you very much, Wolfgang, but you can stay here, I think, because we directly switch to the round table. And for that, I welcome Wolfgang, Helmut, Franz, and I think Mrs. Duquenne is still in the panel. Is she still online so that we can add her to the panel list? And Alexander Schimanofsky. Alexander.
Problem.
We can hear it.
Perfect.
Yes.
So maybe Wolfgang, you can end sharing your screen. So, or is it?
For sure. No, I will stop it.
Okay, thank
Sorry
you.
for that.
So then we can have the panel in front of us. Okay, so I want to kick this this roundtable off with maybe a question primarily aimed to Mrs. Duquenne. The question was, what are the most important lessons the European Agency for Railway can learn from the European Agency for Aviation Safety? So are there similarities? Do you learn from each other? Do you kind of, I mean, you do not copy paste concepts for sure, but is there kind of a learning process or an exchange of know-how, information and things like that?
What I can answer now is when we started to reflect on safety critical components, because it was something new in the revised regulation, we made a type of state of the art from the other transportation area, and we have discovered that for the aviation it is a bit different. They don't have completely the concept of safety critical component, but more on certification on already component made by the manufacturer, because there is the manufacturer is a bit like a design authority. So we thought that perhaps it could be useful to increase the harmonization. And for example, when you have to use a wheel set, if this wheel set was authorized and checked by a design authority, perhaps it could be better in future. But that we have to take into account that the railway domain is not like aviation. Aviation, they have reflected a long time about it. For the railway is a bit different. We have different manufacturers. For the moment, there is not a type of harmonization, and perhaps the concept is not the same. So when I explained that this morning, it just a reflection on it. But we will see in some years how we can deal now with what we have put in our regulation, not only for ECM, but also for authorization of vehicle. And we will see after, just that. And what we have, if I may appreciate also, is a common use of English language, that it is in the aviation. We try to do the same for highway, but as I explained, highway is not the same. So it is difficult to use the same language, even in some database. For example, in ERADIS, when an ECM certification body put a certificate, the template, of course, is in English, but it's always possible to put as PDF file the certificate in the national language. You see, that also it could be useful in future, but I'm not sure if it will be possible. That because we are a bit different, and we are a bit different.
That's an interesting point. As we're talking about the English language is in some cases, especially in technical context, often a little bit too flat for the purpose. And maybe a question to all of you, and maybe each of one of you wants to step in to give an answer or an insight from his personal experience. Did you face, or what are memories of yours related to the English language was too flat, as we are facing with this ECM regulation, different countries with different languages, and every country maybe has his own word for special things. So can you give any input on this? Any one of you just raise your hands. Any stories about that?
Yes, I can tell you some. I could tell you tales about that. Yeah, because in the past, when we was at a regulation just like UIC or something RIC, and this international community in the rail business in Europe, as former from the era as well, it was always difficult to find the right wording for rail business in different languages, and it's still till today it's very difficult when you have different words and names for the same components or for the same parts. And I think that this regulation and this normalization will need a couple of years till, but at the end of the day, I think that the result from the English version, from the entity in charge for maintenance and the basic regulations, the TSI, for example, and the other technical specifications for that are really good. Is a really good result. And so from my side, congratulations to the ERA for doing that. Because from the operational business, it was a decade-long problem for border crossing train driving, and now we are on the right way. It could get faster from my point of view, yes, of course, but I'm sure we are on the right way. And English is quite good as well too. We only have to normalize this wordings and the glossar for that, and then it's fine.
I would also like to add something to that.
Please.
There are two aspects regarding the English language or the national or member states languages. ECM on one side is a standardized system throughout the European Union, and it's also in place to enable the stakeholders and companies on the railway market, in the railway sector, to communicate, because it's more or less the standard language. On the other hand, ECM is something that goes quite down to, into the countries, into, let me say, different skill levels, education levels, etc. And you cannot expect that every worker in every railway workshop speaks English. So it's very important that all the documents, all the regulations are available in the member state languages, that certificates and all the other things also can be understood by every person who is involved in the system. So I think that bipolarity between the standardized English language on the international level, and on the other hand, the member state language down into the workshops and into the operative daily railway life is very, very important. And I think this is one of the very big achievements of the European Union and of ERA to cope with that very, very wide spread of languages. So I think that's a really good solution here. For sure, effort sometimes is big, but I think it's working out quite well, and it covers all the requirements.
Lucas, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a question to Nathalie. Thank you for your participation. We have a lot of interest experts, rail experts from, for example, Slovakia. Do you have special experience with in contact, to stay in contact with them, or?
Normally, we organize since 10 years what we say cooperation for ECM certification body, and in this meeting we invite all the ECM certification body for all Europe. So very often we have that it was before not a virtual meeting but a real meeting with all this ECM certification body, where we can explain what will be the difficulties for some of them. So we have somebody from Slovakia invited in this cooperation, and if unfortunately it is not possible for budget or for other reason to come to this cooperation, we have created also on ERADIS in the public zone what we call the recommendation for use, where every ECM certification body can put an inquiry, and we have a technical committee to try to find a solution, and the solution is explained to the plenary meeting, and it is voted or not, if it is clear or not clear enough to improve the understanding of the regulation, and especially to solve the problems that some ECM certification body could have in one or another country. So we have this type of contact, and of course we receive regularly questions from different ECM certification body, but also from some ECM. For ECM it's more difficult because as you know, there is not an global association to represent all ECM at this moment. We have participation of CIR, from EPTOLA, from ERFA, where you can find the ECM, but there is no a body represented all ECM. Perhaps in future, if we need to have that, perhaps it could be useful also. For the moment, there is not to have a representative body who will represent the problem and the activity of ECM. That it will be perhaps a good idea in the future.
Thank you so much. May I have an add-on?
Yes.
Go on.
Thank you. PUM Software has the headquarters in Leibniz. It's a city in the south of Austria. So we are very close to the borderline to Slovenia and Croatia and Italy and so on. What is your experience with these new member states, Slovenia, Croatia, and maybe also the experience with Serbia railways?
For that, what it is good, and I'm sure that you are aware of that, we have the European regulation with the regulation 779, but we have also the equivalence for OTIF non-EU country like Serbia, Montenegro, Turkey, and they have the same regulation under the name ATMF Annex A in the COTIF, and because the requirements are the same, perhaps there is some differences because they have not the process of national safety authority, but the requirements are completely the same. It's the reason that we host also in ERADIS certificates from Serbia, from Montenegro, and that it is good. And of course, they are invited in your cooperation of ECM certification body. So we try to have one place where everybody, European country and OTIF non-European country, can have all the information concerning ECM and ECM certificate.
Last question?
Yes, please, a short one, please.
Really quite. I want to know from Nathalie. Thank you for being on stage. What is your maybe different opinion between the national rail freight company, for example, and we can see there are a lot of new private cargo rail companies on the stage in the market. They are more quick in ECM. We saw, thank you, Wolfgang, for your experience, and this was really great how you are implemented your ECM system. Can you see there is a different speed between national rail companies and private?
It's a bit difficult to answer because here at the agency, in my position, I have only a view about the certificate, and of course we can discuss about the process during this meeting, but I have not a real contact with ECM, but what I can say is just some feedback. When we had only the regulation 445 concerning freight wagons, we have more small companies and other, but not a lot of manufacturers, for example. Now, with the fact that this regulation is extended to other types of vehicle, especially locomotive, high-speed train, we can see manufacturers with an ECM certificate or engineering company with an ECM certificate. That it is something that I have seen since 1 year. We have to wait a bit, but I cannot say something about completely to answer to your question, because in our side we see only the certificates and we didn't realize the big differences between, if I can say, an incumbent highway undertaking before and the newcomer. That it is difficult to say. What we have also in the certification process, it's possible to obtain an ECM certificate as a newcomer for 1 year, for example. That it is possible. And after, they receive a certificate for 5 years. So we have seen some of new ECM certified like a newcomer. But after that, it's difficult to answer more to your question.
Très bien. Merci, madame.
Thank you very much. Well, from my side, one final question to close this this roundtable with a valuable insight for our visitors and our audience. As we have a very interesting constellation, we have 4 different perspectives on ECM, on implementing ECM procedures. And I want to know from each of you, from your perspective, what are typical shortcomings of companies when entering a certification process, when preparing for a certification process? Can you give us just from top of your mind, what is one shortcoming, what is one gap you have to close before entering the process? Whoever wants to start.
Don't say the ladies before, huh, please.
Maybe I take the starting position here. Having insight in different kinds of ECMs, and maybe that also answers Fran's question right before. It's not so much a difference between well-established, long traditional, big, in some cases still national operators, and new, flexible, small ones coming more and more into the game. What we see is that in big companies, in large companies, which in most cases have a very long tradition, the awareness for each individual aspect of ECM is quite present. On the other hand, processes are complicated, processes are split up in different IT landscapes, processes are different from workshop to workshop, etc. So there are inhomogeneities with it. There can be inhomogeneities in very big organizations. Standardization of all that, including standardization of interfaces and information transfer, is one of the most difficult things for, seems to be one of the most difficult things for big traditional companies. On the other hand, if you see all the young stars here in the sector, they have a very diverse business strategy and business targets. So it's a difference if you are a leasing company, if you are a workshop, if you are in a railway undertaking, hiring wagons from a leasing company and outsourcing maintenance to independent workshops. And depending where those smaller companies come from, sometimes there are deficiencies in the understanding what the other parts in the game are doing. And it can happen that a maintenance management function 1, for example, misses out the importance of the interface of data and knowledge transfer, for example, to the function 4. If a function 1 expects that all the responsibilities for quality are exclusively in function 4, then there is a misunderstanding, because function 1 has to be in the leadership. So that's just a very simple example, but there is a lot of different things that we face out during the certification processes and audit processes, and from time to time things even get critical, but in most cases these things can be sorted out within the certification period of 4 months.
Thank you so much. Who wants to continue? Maybe Wolfgang from your frontline experience, or Helmut?
Yeah, so I will continue. That's what I see in the market when companies doesn't demand, or if large companies or small companies or new entrepreneurs, when they have to implement ECM, the first thing I see is fear. Fear for all these processes, for all this administration for that. At the large companies is the fear because they already have processes, historically driven processes, and generating, and that means for them that they have a real change work to do, and to clear all these responsibilities and the domains implemented in the organization. And at the small companies, we see it that it's a matter of costs, it's a matter of administration, not even the ECM certification as well. For example, the ISO certification for quality management 9001, 2050, and as well too, with all this tail on it, depending tail on it, with the facility management and all the tools, recalibration, and all the documentation for qualifications and so on. And that's very hard.
Too, maybe.
And that's what we try to do, especially with our software. We bring the ECM processes to the ground, and we bring a framework, a setup, a skeleton from these processes, and anyone can build up his system for that as well too. Especially for the auditors and just like RCC, like here, if the auditor, the inspector is coming to the company and says, okay, I want to see that or that maintenance file, and with 2 clicks, you're right over there. Or if you have to rent a vehicle or to hand it over to another new owner, you can export the maintenance file, the lifecycle file, with 1 click and hand it over. So you can do it in this time with digitalization. It's possible to do the easy these processes. The only thing is you have to a kind of motivation, probably to do some processes, some things for you. And that is what I mean, this game-changing aspect from the ECM. There are so many opportunities in that to make a clear field, to making housekeeping for the big companies and as well for the small companies out of the box, to have automatic processes and to focus on the business. But especially the small companies, the small EDUs and RUs should do the work. They have to focus on the business and not on the organization and not on the administration.
Anything to add from Wolfgang or Nathalie to that? Otherwise, sorry, yeah.
Yes, maybe it's true. If I can say something about what it will be good in future, is we have to realize that maintenance activity is something very important in the total cost of the vehicle, and maybe if you would like to make some saving, the ECM, it's a bit like you explained before, has to work a lot about the maintenance plan, how to improve it, how it's possible perhaps to reduce some frequency or to change some frequency, because it's true that especially for freight, but they have taken the maintenance plan and they work with that. But don't forget that the ECM has the power to change this maintenance plan, of course, with some precaution, with some risk analysis, with an assessment of the change, but they have the power to do it. And unfortunately, at this moment, perhaps we will see novelties or new things in future concerning especially locomotive or other types of vehicle. But we have to sometimes to remind them that they have the power to change something if they want, of course, with some precaution, but perhaps the future is to improve the maintenance activity with that. And as Boom explained before, perhaps to have more reflection about condition-based maintenance, predictive maintenance, but there is a need to explain to ECM that they can have the power to do it.
Thank you very much. So we have already some questions from the audience again, from maybe some more general questions to now a very specific one, but not less interesting. The question is, are safety critical components and spare parts somehow monitored or especially monitored? Is there like a certain ways for those parts? Maybe you, Helmut, or whoever wants to step in for this question. Helmut, please.
Yes, of course. There are some basic regulations for that. For example, I take the example with a wheel set because it's a classically safety critical component. For that, the maintenance file for that and the type and scope of maintenance for the wheel set are given by the EN 15313. With all this maintenance file you need for that, and as well for the 13260 to 262 standards for that. And at the end of the day, you have to monitor and survive, and making the whole documentation for safety critical parts. The ECM in the 779 has reduced the effort for maintenance files at all, and they reduced it explicitly to safety critical components. So that means you can focus more on the safety critical components, and it's not necessary to track any window change or some seat change or something else. That's not so important for the perspective of safety in the rolling stock, but it's more important to take the monitoring and the surveillance from safety critical components. And another topic is in the 779 versus to the 4045, that in the 4045 only the ECM2 was responsible on the manufacturer for the list of safety critical components. That's not even right now with 779 that was coming up, that also the ECM3 is responsible to giving feedback from the operating system if there are some issues or indications that the spare part, the component is right now safety critical because you have some indication for that. There has to be a feedback to the community, and the European Union has set up an IT system for that, the safety alert system, to make all these notices. And on this way, it's going back to the ECM2 in the community as well as to the manufacturers. So from this point of view, for all the background keepers, it's better to focus on the safety critical components, and that do really and do it good and complete for that, and identify all your components for that and check it in the list. And if there are some new recognitions with that, with components which are not right now on the list, so give the feedback back to the ECM2. We cannot hear you right now, Lucas.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's because I was muted. Yeah, we have a second very specific question, but also pretty interesting. When talking about digitalization, and we already heard a lot about data exchange. Does the regulator has any standardization for that? So is there a standardized data exchange concept behind all that, or do we have to figure that out down the line during the process? Is there a concept for that?
I give at first a part of the answer to the question. There are already definitions and regulations for that, but they're primarily in the TSI, in the technical specification for interoperability. You have over there a really good definition for the data exchange between the subcomponents or the subdomains, between infra and operations, and between locomotive and passengers, as well as for wagons as well too. Directly in the ECM procedure, it's not defined, and that's what I mentioned in my in my presentation, I would wish that a little bit of support for digitalization in the ECM would be very helpful. Especially in the communication between ECM 2 and ECM 4 and ECM 3. I noticed that with a topic data ownership, and nobody wants to give his data. Anyone says, but the wagon keeper as well too, and especially by the large companies that are my data, and I do not share that. Not especially to the manufacturer, because the manufacturer is doing some improvements with that, and then when I'm buying the next vehicle or the next locomotive, I have to sell it again and buy it again, and that's a little bit difficult. And so from my experience with over 35 years now in the rail business here, and especially with the IT and the rail business, with all his regulation, it would be very helpful for digitalization, for optimizing these processes, to get a basic framework, a rule set for interchange between ECM 1 to ECM 4. That would be great.
May I reply to that a little bit?
Yes, please.
I understand that there would be that there is a certain request for some kind of regulation in this regard. But on the other hand, if there would be a regulation, all ECMs, independent of what function they are working in and independent where they are and how big they are, would have to obey to those rules. For small ECMs, it could be very, very complicated. For big ECMs, it could be easier, depends. But it would be hard to set up a system that treats all ECMs independent where they are and how big they are in the same way. This is one of the bases of European legislation. You have to treat all market competitors in the same way and give all the same chances. And also, as ECM is management system relevant, like ISO 9001, for example, the ECMs already are obliged to set up a system which is transparent and complete. But how that system is set up, for example, if the maintenance files are stored at the function 4, but always available for the function 1, for example, or if they are transferred to the function 1 so that they can prepare them whenever needed, that's not so important. And that gives some kind of flexibility. So if we would introduce too many rules on that, we would get into a tricky situation. And that's something which we frequently face, and where we are absolutely sure that digitalization is one of the biggest improvements in maintenance history, because it offers you so many ways how to do the things very, very efficiently.
Talking about doing things very efficiently, there is a question from the audience. It was posed that the Innofreight migrates its ERP system to the BOOM system now. So the question is, what is the time frame for such an undertaking, and how much workload is that, and how much competencies do you need for that, or are involved into this? How much stakeholders? How can we explain things like that? So to give like an inside view of how this could look like, the process could look like.
How should where I should start answering these questions? I would say at Innofreight it was an advantage that, for example, myself as a project leader and also all ECM related colleagues were within the same department. So our department are taking care about all quality related issues and also about this ECM in daily life, I would say. So also here communication ways were really short, and more or less if I had some really deep technical question from daily business, all colleagues were available within minutes, I would say. Definitely an issue was that all my general working activities were not put to the side, and I would say for sure implementation for this was now, I think, going 3 or 4 months longer than planned. This I have to say actually, but I would say caused also in the fact that I was not working fully on it, because compared to other partners which have implemented BOOM boom application. So where persons were only working on this, then it goes, I would say, a lot faster. But from my point of view, it would be good that minimum you have one project leader for 50%, I would say. So with our scope of integration, don't forget that we are putting aside completely ECM4 package. Other partners, as I've mentioned before, had, I think, 1.5 full working people implementing the boom application, and then it's going for sure much faster. And stakeholder, I would say, are going from the managing board down to all different ECM stages. So I would say it's a little bit the same if you are implementing, I would say, in different certification. So stakeholders are always defined by the scope of the certification. If it's 9001 ECM or 15085, this is always depending.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this question was answered sufficiently. Before we already overdrafted our schedule a little bit, but anyway, very interesting insights. But before we discuss our last question, I want to give you a short preview. As we have already heard today, the term wheel set, we're going to discuss more about the wheel set in September of this year with the next episode of the RailVoice webinar series. So maybe already some of you are already interested in that topic, or maybe one of your colleagues. So spread the word, and we're going to discuss the wheel set in September of this year on the webinar RailVoice series. Anyway, thank you very much to all of the speakers, and thank you much to all of the audience. And to close our meeting today and our webinar today, one last question. As Boom invited to this webinar, what is the position of Boom Software in this whole ECM process, in this whole ECM implementation? Where are you positioned in the market, and why are you in contact with this topic? Maybe this is an interesting question to close the day. And yes, please, Helmut and Franz.
Yeah, from my position as a rail expert and the vice president for the rail solutions, it's quite clear. Our vision is to transform the rail business with our solution, with the expertise of rail. That's why we talk rail, at least, and we want to support with our solution our customers to minimize the operating effort for administrative topics with ECM, and to automate all the processes quite through the ECM domains, so that they can primarily look at the business, what they have to do right now. That's a lot thing to do right there, and our software should support them and do all the other processes. For example, the recertification and so on should go very easy and very cheap for our customers. So you get the asset biography with all the maintenance files at one click, and you can improve your processes and the productivity from your vehicles as well too. And we have a lot of very interesting topics for the future. I mentioned it with condition-based maintenance. That's what our system on components and subcomponents can do. That's a very big advantage, and we are bringing up these evidences for maintenance improvement, because the data that we are collecting are, at the end of the day, the evidence for optimization, the maintenance plans, the manufacturers, and so you can optimize at least your maintenance cost and productivity from the vehicles. That's from the operational side, primarily our goal. And on the other side, I don't know if you talk about that as well too. ECM is a regulation for Europe, but from our point of view, it's so good and so good structured and so innovated that you can use it anywhere in the world. And when we are talking to customers, for example, now in Indonesia and something else in the world, we're taking this as a reference, ECM as a reference for the whole processes. And I want to announce another webinar today in the afternoon from the ERA. It's called ERA's Global Activities and International Cooperation. Yeah, and probably we can share this link too for your, if you're interested in that. And so we see that this concept is a very good concept and is a good basis for us, as a software company, to set focus on it and to count on it. Something to add?
Everything you're saying, but from our point, from the management point, we see rail transport has a great future, and we want to support this successful story.
Thank you so much. So thanks again and I start from my view, from top to bottom. Thank you, Alexander Schimanofsky from the RCC. Thank you, Wolfgang Seidl from InnoFreight. Thank you very much, Nathalie Duquenne from the European Agency for Rail Transport. And of course, thank you, Boom Software, and thank you, Helmut and Franz. If you have any additional questions, you can contact Boom Software directly. And if you have questions to one of our keynote holders, we can forward the questions to them, or you ask them directly. So thank you very much. I wish you a successful Thursday, and I hope to see you all in September. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Au revoir.